Hi there, I'm Emily Yee and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work with gifted and intense teenagers, and today we're going to talk about goal setting, which is one of my very favorite things to do, especially with teens who are ADHD, very intense, perfectionistic, and have some big goals, but they also have some big feelings. So let's jump in. Little choices and action add color back into your life. Thinking about the future can be really difficult. I just want to acknowledge that from the jump, especially if you are dealing with depression, anxiety, ADHD. If you're a female who goes through some of these cyclical things throughout the month where for some weeks we're killing it and other weeks we just want to hide under a rock, it can be difficult. And so I love to talk about it because I think there are some specific skills and ways to break it down that a lot of kids never learn because they didn't have to early on in life. Flying colors when they were getting grades through 5th grade, 6th grade, and then the rubber starts hitting the road right about when they want to be accomplishing some big things. And it can be really discouraging because here you are thinking that you can get done anything that you set your mind to, and you know that you can, and yet you keep hitting these roadblocks. So let's dive into how to use some skills to overcome some of these roadblocks for goal setting. Some of the common goals that I hear about a lot in therapy are wanting to get straight A's in high school or in college. That's super hard. Wanting to get a job, get a car, save money, start a photography business, start a YouTube channel, join a drumline or some kind of musical team that you have to audition for, build up their friendships, not becoming popular, but kind of having a goal of having a really healthy girl gang or just like a group of friends that you actually enjoy. That's a big goal that a lot of teenagers have these days, and it feels somewhat unattainable. There's also my favorites, I have to say, that come in and they want to write a book, or they want to start a nonprofit, or they want to do something really big. They're ready for the world, and they're not quite sure how to organize the steps to get there. And so whether that's you, that's a big dreamer, or you're really not sure yet about the future, I still just want to present some of these skills to you to take with you from here. We're going to introduce the SMART acronym for goal setting. And this is used in big companies, in life coaching, in treatment planning for mental health. We use this too. And so it is S stands for specific. So let's do an example while we go through it. If you're like, okay, I want to build a stronger friend group. If we're talking about specifics, it's like, okay, what does that look like? Do you want to have people that you talk to when you get to school in the morning? Does it have to be more than one person? Maybe it's just one person. Let's find one person that we can talk to when we get to school in the morning. Measurable, that's that one person. A is attainable. And so I think one person, we could do that. And that's where it's helpful to have some other adults, people that you can bounce ideas off of, because what's attainable to you or to someone else, it's hard to say, it's subjective. R is relevant. So is having that one person to talk to in the morning relevant to your overall goal of having this better group of friends that you would like? And then time bound. When do you want to make that one friend by? Is that like by tomorrow, or by next week, or by next semester? And so picking out these specifics for yourself is the way to set up your goals in general. So if we were to revisit some of the other ones, it's like, okay, I want to start a YouTube channel. That just means like I want to open it and write it all out. And that kind of hits everything. One YouTube channel, that's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, and then time bound by Friday. And so setting out that specific time that you would want to say. In mental health, we'll say, okay, instead of saying we want the client to get better, we'll say we want to see them having, right now they have 4 panic attacks a week. I want to see them having 3 panic attacks a week by 2 weeks from now. And so, or I want to see them using their mindfulness skills instead of 1 time a day, 2 times a day by Friday. And so we'll set up these specific goals so then we know when we've made progress. One of my favorite little worksheets, I guess, to use is where do you want to be when you look at yourself in this goal in 1 week? in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 10 years, in 25 years. And so we really can plan out what that looks like. And this is so helpful for my clients who have those big dreams, because they'll say things like, well, I want to write a book, and I want to go to an Ivy League school, and I want to get my doctorate, and I want to have a family, and I want to live in New York, and I want to live in California. It's like, okay, how do we do all these things at the same time? And the answer to that is maybe you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. And let's look at what it looks like to kind of put it out in a timeline like this, so that when you are 80, you're a person who can look back on your life and say, I wrote a book, and I went to an Ivy League school, and I lived in California, and I lived, all over the place. And so you can say, I accomplished all these things. But as a young person, it's hard to say, well, I want to get these things done, and it feels like everything has to get done at the same time, but it doesn't. And so getting that perspective for yourself is a way to break down your goal into smaller steps. Same thing with having that friend group. I want to have this great social life. And what does that look for me for next week, for 1 month, for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? And bouncing it off of somebody of, is that attainable? Is it reasonable? And it definitely is. I just want to encourage you with that, especially if you have those action steps and little goals set up for yourself. Then it's a matter of figuring out, okay, what do we need to do to get there? So I specialize in working with gifted students, and a lot of times the clients that I have don't necessarily know that they're gifted. They didn't test gifted in school. They're just very intense and have really deep emotions. They might be neurodivergent, think very differently than others. And these are the kids that probably give up on themselves before they even start. They change their mind all the time on what kind of goal they want to do, because they might try it, and if they're not immediately talented at it and seeing success, then they're like, oh, this isn't my thing. I wasn't made for this. And so these are the kids that teachers and parents want them to be able to push through a hard process and get to the other side. And really, as a society, we need our bright, intelligent students to be tackling really hard things that are not going to come naturally to anybody. But if we spend time on that problem with a really intellectual and quick learning brain, then we can make more progress. But they have to be able to tolerate a difficult process. They have to understand what it takes to accomplish a goal that has several steps and goes and lasts for a long time. And so that's part of why I'm so passionate about teaching goal setting to really intense kids, is because I know what they're capable of, and I also know that there's nobody teaching these skills to this particular group of students. Often it's taught, but it comes very naturally to them. The goals that they have put in front of them, usually until like they're 25 or so, are attainable. They don't have to sit down and write out steps and plans and really implement it and hold themselves accountable and motivate themselves until they're in a career that's really difficult, balancing a family, and that's really when the rubber hits the road. But early on as a teenager, if we can motivate them to think big and really push themselves, and they can learn what it takes to accomplish hard things, and that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth their time, then I'm hoping that we'll see more and more take on bigger and harder problems, and we'll have more solutions. Let's talk about perfectionism. Perfectionism sounds like a good thing. You want to be the one who everybody's like, oh my gosh, they're so perfect. But it's not a good thing. Perfectionism is thinking that everything that you do has to be flawless and that you have to give 150% all the time. And so what's the problem with giving 150% all the time? Is that it's beyond what you can give. You are eventually going to burn out. And what's more realistic is that some of the time you're going to give 150%, other times you're going to give 50%. And that a lot of the time, 80% is probably what's perfect, because we need that extra energy to do things like feed ourselves, shower, sleep, take care of our children, whatever comes in your future life. But right now as teenagers, you're needing that extra time to engage with your family, your younger siblings. All the times when you just totally lose your mind and get in trouble for acting out because you've been putting so much into your grades, so much into your friendships, your relationships, so much into your work that you don't have it to give to these other areas. So perfectionism can be battled by little mantras like 80% is perfect, or I'm only, time limits. I'm only going to let myself work on this for this long. Or when you're playing sports, giving yourself like quota for failures. So like, let's go out and throw the football until I drop it 10 times. Like, I want to drop it sometimes. I want to push myself to where I'm in a place of failure so that I am learning. And it's a hard concept, but it's mostly about just getting comfortable with the idea of imperfection and when it's appropriate to be 80% and when it's necessary to be 100%. There's very few situations that have to be 100%. It's like air traffic controllers and surgeons. A lot of the time, 80% is okay. A lot of my clients that are very intense have a hard time working in groups and have a hard time working towards a goal when there's lots of roadblocks that get in the way. And so I would encourage them to think about the idea that failure or a wrong idea, a failed attempt, trial by error is a good thing. It shows that what you tried didn't work. It's progress towards your goal. And something that I found that I really love with this is role-playing games. So I've actually never played Dungeons and Dragons, confession. Maybe in the future, I would love to. But we have created some role-playing games that I use therapeutically, and having the situation where my original character has to come up with a solution based on its life motto and values and strengths and weaknesses, and your original character has to come up with a solution, and then we roll a dice to decide if it was successful or not. And it doesn't matter if it was like a really silly solution that was an option or one that's like brilliant and should work in real life. The dice decides, and then you move on. And I just think that that's been such a really great example and metaphor for how to approach problems in life. Sometimes we just have to give it a shot, and sometimes it works out. Other times we give it a shot and it doesn't work out, and we try something new. And so approaching perfectionism with the idea that it can be toxic, it can absolutely burn you out, and we want to be aware of it and on guard against it. And it's kind of toxic in our approach to solving problems or goal setting, because we have to keep moving. We don't know when we're setting goals if it's truly attainable until we try. And then we have to try something different. So there's a lot of pivoting, and not letting perfectionism get in your way is going to be really important. So this next section is for the parents of my ideal client, which would be parents of gifted kids who have been tested and diagnosed gifted, or parents of kids who are just very intense, and maybe they're having a hard time at school, maybe they're having a hard time with their anxiety or their depression, and you're not sure how to help them set goals and get moving. These are the kids that may appear to have the skills to accomplish the goals that you would have in mind for them. They are able to whiz through a book, but they have a hard time cleaning their room. They are able to be the president of their class and give a speech, memorize really long poems, but they have a hard time dealing with their emotions when it comes to friendships. They really can't bond with other people, or they always feel like nobody likes them. And so you have this asynchronous development. On one side, they're able to do things that are way beyond their years, and then on the other side, they can't even do things that are like 5 years younger than them. And that's really challenging for a parent. You're trying to hold them to their potential and confused by the things that they cannot do well. And so this is an opportunity with goal setting to recognize when they need support and when steps need to be broken down even further. And it's kind of easy to recognize because they usually burst out in tears or shut down completely. And that's your sign. Okay, it's not working. I thought it should. As much as we say to them, you should be able to do this, they can't. It's kind of a core part of my work, is knowing that kids, if they can do better, they will do better. And if they're not doing better, it's because they need some kind of support. And so if we have the goal of turning in your homework and you put a behavior chart together, which is great. So we've got a visual tool, excellent for our ADHD kids. We've got like a sticker chart, it's the date, and if they turned in their homework, they get a sticker. And they're just not turning in their homework. Okay, well, what's going on there? Do we need to break it down to what is the system at school? Do they need to have their homework already outside of their folder, or do they need to have it in their hands when they go into the school? And so we build up, we break down the steps versus just you're going to go to school and turn in your homework to you're going to go to school and walk to your teacher and get a signature in your planner that you said hello to her, and she's going to ask you for your homework, and then you're going to turn it in. And so meeting them where they are, and when they're not able to do something, it's like breaking down that step a little bit further. Sometimes it helps if you body double them. That's kind of a little hot term these days. And it just means being present with them while they do what you know that they're capable of doing. It's a type of emotional support. So if they have their room full of toys or clothes, and you are just in the room while they're putting the things away, and you find that that helps them stay on task and keep themselves regulated, then that's a great thing. And we start to work away from it, but knowing that that's something that they need. With these very intense kids and their emotions, we want to celebrate any little win. So if their goal is to get off the bench of soccer, and they're showing up to every practice, and they're enthusiastic, and they're practicing after school on their own, and they're being responsible, praising the effort, not just if they got off the bench in soccer. So breaking it down even for yourself of what are the steps that are going to get us there, and how do we encourage the effort in the right direction more than the outcomes. Letting those things either be equal, if not the effort be higher, of what you're paying attention to and praising. We also want to be a place where they can land when they fail. That's what's really great about setting big goals when you still live at home, is that if things don't work out, you have this home team that's cheering for you. And so if they're making really big goals and they're failing, being someone that they can come to and you stay impressed with their vision and their dream, and you help them to see, okay, well, how can we break it down differently? What kind of support do we need to keep going? Because one failure doesn't mean that it's over. Sometimes it just means, what did we learn? How do we go forward from here? And they need to know that you believe that they can be successful. They can feel that. They can sense it. And they can be successful with the right support. And that's what you and them are trying to figure out together. And then the last piece of encouragement is that remembering that relaxation is so important to our mental health, and helping them to balance their productivity and their perfectionism with rest and play. They need to be out of fight or flight, out of anxiety, out of push for a season, for a bit, in order to restore their nervous system, and in order to regain creativity and the ability to solve problems and go the long run. And as the parent, you're that prefrontal cortex. You're the one that's really able to see the big picture for them and to speak into their life and say, hey, you've been burning the candle at both ends, and I really think you should take a day off. I think that that's what's going to help you accomplish your goal in the long run. And plant that seed, and you model that kind of behavior. That rest is important. Play is important. It's not all about the tasks that you do to accomplish your goal, but maintaining a rhythm and a pace that can go the distance. And so your encouragement for them to rest and to play is going to be really important. So just with my final remarks, as usual, you don't have to have it all figured out to start. You just have to be curious. So thinking about what you might like to accomplish, going through the SMART goals, jotting down a few ideas of a timeline of when you might get things done if there's a lot that you want to get done and you can't do it all at the same time. Thinking of a few people that might be on your team and able to help you see if you need to get creative about the steps that you're taking. Keep in mind that failure isn't failure. It's kind of learning something new, and I encourage you to keep going with it. If you'd like to work with me, I'd love to have you. So like and subscribe to this video. Reach out to me through the link in the information below.